Our next method is a little bit more complex and allows more detail and control to be added to our roads. We can create four-way intersections, as well as we can create very tight 90-degree turns, as well as a little more wide 90-degree turns, and add U-turns or 180 turns, as you see here. First, let's create a three-way intersection that you see here, and then we're going to expand it into a four-way intersection. First thing I want to do is go to Browse and select the texture of the road that I want to use. So let's say I'm going to use this concrete / road 01, or use any other road texture depending on the editor that you're using. And I'm going to select the brush, go into the top view, and I'm going to simply create a 512 by 256 road. And 256 is for 2-lane road, and 512 is for a 4-lane road. My road that I'm going to create here for a three-way intersection is going to be a 2-lane road. Once I have my brush finalized, I'm going to click enter. I need to rotate the textures, and I'm going to hit fit, and it's a little stretched out, so I'm going to just bring down the texture scale of Y to 2.5. And now our road is scaled properly and it fits onto our brush. Now, if I simply take this brush, duplicate it, rotate it, and try to create a three-way intersection like this, it's just not going to work. We can mess around with the textures, and we can bring this down. Let's say we take this and we move it something like this. Then maybe we can rescale the brush. Now this could work, but again it's not optimal. The way textures, they don't line up, and there's a better way, and it's to create wedges and cut certain pieces off the road to make them fit and make the textures line up. So let's delete this brush. I'm going to take this brush, I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to put this piece here, and I'm going to duplicate and put the other piece on the other side. So now we have this intersection created. So now what we need to do is we need to cut at a halfway point at 128 from here, from this end, and cut a corner out, something like this, which you see here. So going back here, we are going to use the clip tool. We're going to go to the top and making sure that we cut our brush at 128 at the halfway point. So if I resize this brush down, we can see that this is a perfect square that fits right between these two roads. So when we cut, we need to cut from this corner, which lines up with this road, and we're going to cut right along here, and we're going to cut at a halfway point, which is 128. So this is simple to do. First you select the brush, then you select the clip tool, and then you drag from this corner right in the middle of the brush. And if we go up to the perspective viewport, you can see where the split is going to happen, and it lines up exactly at corners. So choosing that you are going to cut your brush right at the snap grid vertice all the way to the top, and we can even extend this out. So now that we have our clip selected where we are going to cut, I'm going to just cycle through and make sure that white is what we are going to keep and red is what we're going to discard. So I'm going to click enter, and here we have our brush clipped. So then I'm going to do the same function again, and I'm going to clip it from this end right at the halfway point here. Select the brush, select the clip tool, start at the corner here, and go all the way to the corner. And since we have our snap on grid set to 16 and the grid is snapped, everything is going to be nicely aligned after we are done. So I'm going to cycle through, make sure that white is what we are going to keep and red is going to be discarded, press enter, and now we have our wedge. Now we're going to do the same thing with these two brushes. So I'm going to take this brush, I'm going to resize it to the halfway point here. I'm going to take the bottom brush and halfway point here. So now we're actually beginning to see what the intersection is going to look like. Now we are going to clip just one corner. Since this is a three-way intersection, we're going to clip one corner starting from here to the halfway point, making sure that we are aligned to the brush, and we are because we are on the grid set to 16. I'm being very careful where our clipping is happening. White, the brush is going to be kept. Red, discard it. Press enter, and we are checking into the perspective viewport. And let's do the same thing with the last brush. Start here and here, cycle through. Red, discarded. White, kept. Enter. And now we have our three-way intersection. And you see that the textures at the corners line up perfectly, as well as all these three brushes don't have any gaps in between them, and all the brushes are nicely aligned between each other. Now the problem comes with the texture that we're using. This intersection looks unrealistic. You don't see anything like that at intersections. So unless we have a texture that we can mess around with, perhaps a dotted line, if I look at, we see something like this here, and we can use this here to make sure that it aligns, but then we don't have the borders that we have on the other texture. So what we can do is, one, you can create your own set of textures that will create nicely neat intersections that don't have textures coming right at a point here. So again, having perhaps a dotted line that goes across between two roads will nicely fall into an intersection here and won't create a perfectly aligned lines here. Another way to do so, if you don't want to create your own textures, is to use overlays to hide something like this. So an option would be to go to apply overlays and then browse, and under filter just type in overlay, and here we can scroll down, and there's a variety of overlays that we can use to hide those lines. Let's say we like something like this street cover. Let's double click and let's apply it right in the middle to hide the texture, and we need to have this overlay applied to all the brushes. So we just need to go into the properties of the overlay by double clicking on it, and here we have brush faces. So we just simply need to select this, pick control, and make sure that we select the other two brushes, click apply, and now we have something like this that's sort of hiding the intersection. Then we can also apply some other overlays that will hide the rest of this perfect line, and will create more of an illusion of the intersection without having that yellow line come to a perfectly connected corner that we saw before. So that's another way to hide something like this, is using overlays if you don't want to create your own textures. So let's delete this for a second, and let's talk about if we want to create a four-way intersection. So to create a four-way intersection, it's going to be done the same way as we did a three-way intersection, and we are simply going to take this brush and we're going to duplicate it to the other side. So going to the top, duplicate, and then simply rotate, making sure that the point comes and meets with the other four brushes right in the corner here. What we need to do is we need to clip these two roads just like we did before, and get rid of this triangle that is intersecting with this brush. So I'm going to go select the brush, select the clip tool, drag from the corner to the other corner, making sure that our brushes and our clip tool is lined up. I'm going to cycle through, red, discarded, enter, and same thing for the other brush. Select this brush, clip tool, drag, cycle through, red, discarded, enter. So now we have a perfect four-way intersection using four brushes and using the clip tool. And if we want to again hide the unrealistic texture, we simply can go to our overlay method, go through some overlays, and just apply various overlays to kind of give an illusion of how this is going to be hidden. So again, here I'm going to go into the properties, pick all the brushes, make sure that all the brushes are selected, click apply. Perhaps I want to scale a little more than it was before. I want to maybe move this one down. So here we are inside the game, and I applied a couple overlays to hide that nasty line, so it helps. This is just a way to hide the lanes on the road without creating your own textures for it.